I believe they're called enforcers, Gordon. I sell women's shoes.
And the Stallion.
Stallion, baby! I am not what you would call a handsome man. I'll kick you in the nuts and you'll smile at me and like it. All night long.
Welcome to another edition of the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast. We are your hosts. He's the Stallion. I am the Enforcer, and we're back for another week. But this week, this is a special episode. Today, we'd like to be called the Four Figures Podcast. Want to go with that?
Sure.
Like Sonic Death Monkey, right? Barry Jive and the Uptown 5. This week's edition of the Four Figures Podcast is brought to you by ourselves, the way it always is. The Stallion, the Enforcer, doing it themselves from day one. No backing, no financial gain. Just two guys doing it for the love of the game.
I think we just call it the In the Red podcast.
The In the Red, that's a good one too. In the Red, Four Figures Podcast. We're getting help from so many different areas. I don't know who to thank first.
How about that guy on the podcast iTunes that gave us a positive review?
I think his name was Lions for Life.
Let's go Lions.
Let's go Lions. You know what would really help us?
Great job by him.
Speaking of being in the red, would be downloads, shares, likes, ratings on iTunes. I don't want to say we're bleeding money here, but it's no, we are, right?
Bleeding something. Yeah, it might not be a bad test of anybody who actually, at least of our friends or colleagues or people that listen to the show, if they actually listen to the show. Okay. We're asking kindly if you guys can go and give us a nice rating on iTunes or podcast, whatever it is, any sort of application's a full word, short term would be app, out there. If people could go ahead and do that, if they don't mind. The reviews, the positive ratings are good for us. It definitely helps. Not just boost our self-esteem either. It's actually good for the show, which the name seems to be changing every few minutes now. So if anybody actually it's
going to be the Blow My Brains Out podcast in no time.
Well, yeah, we got another 40 minutes left, so there's plenty of time for that during the rest of this podcast. So, but yeah, I think if people are listening, it'll be a good test to see now if people actually go and do this in the next couple of days as our podcast hits the interwebs. And
if you do, let us know on Twitter at AllNightLongWP, and I'll put you over. Because he says we're asking kindly. I'm literally on my hands and knees begging. Like, subscribe, share. A lot of people say they're going to help the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast, the Four Figures Podcast, the In the Red Podcast. A lot of different... I kind of feel like CM Punk. I'm like teetering the line of CM Punk. But there are a lot of people that say they're going to help us, right? And at the end of the day, aside from the fantastic guests that we've had that have been so gracious to give us their time,
that's true.
The Ego, the Lance Hoyt, the Casey Carlisle, the Keith Lee, the SoCal Val, the Thunder Rosa,
the Ethan Page,
sure. Ego, yeah, the Ethan Page,
Ego, right?
Yeah. I mean, aside from the people that have given us their time,
Beer City Bruiser,
Beer City, I forgot one of my favorite interviews. You know, we're doing we are the 2-man smash machine. Can we take that? Because I feel like
we're getting
smashed
over the head with sledgehammers. Yeah.
So anybody that could like our show, comment. I mean.
Please.
What we want to do is we kind of want to take this to multi-platform, multi-level.
For the love of God.
For the love of God!
Multi-platform. I'll settle for one platform at this point.
We have a platform.
A plateau. I would settle for a plateau. But I would just stand on a plateau.
Shove yourself off there?
Violently? Listen,
there's a couple things that we would really like to do, to include a lot of our listeners and some video streaming stuff like that. But we need a little more feedback, and it's not the listeners' fault. It's more other people that said they were going to help us that have done jack and shit. Yeah, we're going off script today. This is the end of this is the pipe bomb promo. I'm calling out names like you, Davey. No, I'm just kidding. I love Davey Richards. I'm a big fan of Davey Richards. He's actually one of my favorites. Davey Richards, love him. Need him on some more shows.
You just keep saying Davey Richards over and over and see if it actually.
Davey Richards. So
he's an EMT now, I believe. So.
Davey Richards is I like saying his name, but just rolls off my tongue. Mr. Richards, or as I call him, D-Bomb. He's like an EMT. He's a firefighter. He's a first responder. A lot of respect for him. You know who I don't have respect for? Anybody that said they were going to help our show that hasn't. You know who you are. You bastards. Feel better.
Yeah, that'll make everybody. I'm sure the reviews will be rolling in now after.
That's not listen. I mean, not our listeners. I appreciate the people. Like we have a lot of consistent listeners. RJ, Bagu, all those people. I appreciate you guys.
So RJ and Bagu, your names have been named. If you guys could go ahead and give us a solid rating somewhere on the internet.
No, not on the internet. On iTunes. We need it.
Yeah,
5
iTunes.
stars. Like the Frog Splash.
Not RedTube. We need you on the iTunes.
Yeah, not
podcast.
X Hamster. That's
Right.
one of them.
Not YouPorn.
I was gonna say the other one. That's a little too graphic. But listen, anyway, we appreciate you guys. We're gonna roll into some professional wrestling this week. It was a big week. We're also gonna talk some fantasy sports, and we're gonna give our picks because apparently, not only are we good at wrestling, we're pretty good at football, fantasy football, making picks online, not for financial gain.
Right.
Yeah. Big news this week. Well, a couple things going on. We had Smackdown. What was it? Viva La Smackdown? Smackdown, Sin City Shitdown? What was it called? Hoedown?
Sin City Smackdown.
Sin City Smackdown. Yeah, it was 36 titles are on the line.
Way to bury it.
No, I thought it was... we'll talk about Sin City Smackdown. Now, it's kind of strange. You know, the WWE, they did a really good job of promoting SmackDown, and then it's like Sin City Smackdown and Raw. You know, and as you can see in the ratings this week, you know, Raw declined, but it was the highest SmackDown rating, I think, all year. Yeah,
well, remember, Raw was going up against 2 Monday Night Football games.
Don't make excuses. Braun Strowman's not over. That's what it is.
I don't know if that's the reason. And SmackDown obviously was not and had a pre-advertised Vince McMahon return on the show. So I think that definitely helped SmackDown, in addition to 3 title matches that they also had advertised in advance for that show. So people who turned on the show knew that you were going to be getting 3 title matches and a segment featuring Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I could not begin to care any less about the Vince McMahon segment, but as a fan of wrestling, you know, it's nice to know what you're getting ahead of time. Like, I don't think they've ever given you 3 matches like that ahead of time. Usually it's like, oh, next week you're going to see this and a couple other things. But to say there's going to be 3 title matches, that had me tuning into it. So I think they did a really good job on that aspect.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, and it's something that should happen more frequently than it does.
Yeah, and they don't always have to be title matches. But, you know, just give us a little, let us know what we're tuning into next week. You know who does a really good job of that? Impact. GFW, I mean, week after week, they tell you what you're going to get the following week. And I'm actually, not to go off on an Impact tangent, but they've done a really good job hyping of, OVE, who is, what is it, Ohio versus Everybody?
Ohio is for Killers, I think, was the original.
Yeah.
I think, OVE might be
Jake and
Ohio,
Dave Christ? I think it's Chris.
I'm going to say Chris. Yeah.
Let's say Chris, because I don't want to say Christ.
Yeah, we don't want
against LAX, that's going to be awesome match. They've done a good job, like I said, of hyping it up on their Twitter, on their Facebook, and on last week's episode. So I'm really looking forward to the show tonight. But not to get sidetracked, like you said, so you knew what you were getting when you tuned into SmackDown this week, and I think for the most part, SmackDown delivered.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I mean, those matches and the Vince segment, I think alone were enough to carry the show. There was other stuff on there that wasn't terrible or bad or anything like that. It was just kind of the normal week-to-week SmackDown stuff. But I think specifically, I guess the tag title match was very good. New Day won the titles back from the Usos. The Styles Dillinger match was pretty solid for what it was. I don't think anybody really expected Dillinger to win. It's really just kind of there to further Styles and Baron Corbin as the next challenger for the U.S. title. And the women's match, again, it seemed like it was more designed to be built around Carmella and the briefcase. But again, it's fine. It's fine for what it was. I think, Naomi had the title for a while. They took it off of her. It seems like the plan is to leave it on Natalya now for at least a little bit, there's nothing wrong with that. And the Vince segment at the end, obviously they built that up pretty well, and I think that got, from everything I've read since the show, very, very positive reviews from most of the people that, write about it, blog about it, talk about it.
What did you think of the Vince segment?
I mean, I thought it was good. Listen, when you get Vince out there, you kind of know what you're getting, I think, when he comes out, right? Obviously, he's the head of the company. That's how he's portrayed on TV. and he's, I think, north of 70 now. So when he comes out there...
106. I just read it.
Yeah?
106.
So I think when he comes out there, you're getting something like that. There's going to be some sort of confrontation, and it's going to result in either some sort of physicality or a major announcement or something happening as a result of him being out there. And I think for that, it delivered, right? They announced that they were going to have Kevin Owens face Shane McMahon at Hell in a Cell in October as part of the next SmackDown pay-per-view. And then, of course, the end of the segment where Owens ended up beating him down pretty good. That went on for a little bit, so Vince took a little more punishment that I would expect somebody of his age to take in the ring. But I guess props to him for doing that. And I thought it makes Owens look stronger, and it builds up that match with the Cell pretty good. And hopefully those guys can do something cool in there. And
what's Shane gonna do? Die? Like, what's his next step in the Cell?
I don't know. I wondered as soon as the match was made. My first thought was, well, maybe this is where Shane wins, right? Like, Shane hasn't won a match, I don't think, since he's been back, at least not on the major pay-per-views that he's done. Right. So I'm like, well, wait, do they put him over here just to kind of give him a win? But then, I think the whole idea of that segment coming out of it is people are like, okay, great, this helps Owens a lot and puts him over pretty well. And now the next thing is you got to put him over even stronger in the Cell to kind of really get him to that next level. So I don't know if they're thinking that same way or if that's just people that watch the show going, okay, now you have to make him look strong in the Cell match and have him win and beat Shane pretty decisively. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. But
you cannot have Shane McMahon beat Kevin Owens at Hell in a Cell. Under no circumstance, in any realm, in any universe, multiverse, I don't care. I don't give a shit where it is. There's no way that Shane McMahon should beat Kevin Owens. Nope, not happening. I read some mark online saying that they were going to have Owens was going to beat down Shane, and he was going to run through the family, and then he was going to have a match with Triple H, which is that totally cool. Whoever came up with that idea, kudos. It wasn't my idea. I'm stealing it, and I'm just saying, I don't know who it was, but that's a good idea. That is something cool. And then Triple H has to destroy his own creation or whatever they said. I think that's a great idea. But if you have Shane McMahon neuter Kevin Owens at Hell in a Cell, I don't give a shit if he jumps off the top of the building. I don't care if he pulls a gun on him. I don't care what it is. There's no way Shane McMahon should beat Kevin Owens at Hell in a Cell. That being said, my issue with the segment, did you hear about the Vince McMahon pre-blading himself?
Yes.
What kind of mark for himself is Vince McMahon that he's allowed to pre-blade himself, meanwhile he'll fine other people for doing it, to get himself over?
I don't think it wasn't designed to get him over.
You think it wasn't so Vince could look tough? You don't think so?
I mean, he got his ass kicked.
He did.
Badly.
And not for nothing. No man, let alone a 70-year-old man, should be taking that headbutt. I don't care who you are. That reminded me of Shibata versus Okada when Shibata had the TBI, the brain injury. I thought he cracked Vince McMahon's skull. And if you watch it in slow motion, Vince, crazy old bastard, actually closed his eyes and lunged into the headbutt. That thing was brutal. It's good booking. I enjoyed watching it. The frog splash was cool. I liked the whole the whole ending. I was so glad that Stephen didn't slap him. I totally thought that was coming. I thought this slap was coming, man. But you know what? It was a good segment. It got people talking, and it was a good way to close out a pretty good SmackDown.
Yeah.
The whole Ty Dillinger match I thought was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't really think Ty Dillinger was going to win. He did hit his finisher, which, hold on, now, didn't he? Why did he change his finisher?
Because
AJ does
because the other way was being done by other people on the main roster, I think so. Right, AJ was doing the tiebreaker the way it was when it was in NXT.
What do they call that? Moore always calls it something like...
I think it's Ushigoroshi or something like that.
God, you're good at this. You're like a better Morrow. Oh my God! Starts screaming like it's a first match.
Morrow. Morrow was in the crowd on Tuesday night for the Mae Young Classic, I believe.
We'll get to that. I'm going to get me started on the Mae Young Classic. But, yeah...